Alright, so in this video I'm going to do some more experiments with sulfur than I did in my last sulfur video. And I'll show you those in a little bit, but of course before that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about sulfur. So sulfur is a very interesting element to me, I think, because there have been bacteria that have been found that actually use sulfur instead of oxygen in their bodies. Now this can be done because sulfur is in the same column on the periodic table as oxygen, and so it actually has the same number of valence electrons, etc. The thing about sulfur is that it's actually quite different in terms of electronegativity and many other things than oxygen. So much so that you can actually have a stable compound, sulfur dioxide. So it's pretty cool that bacteria can actually use it in place of oxygen. I should also say that normal oxygen-using organisms also, like us, also use sulfur, but in other applications, not obviously instead of oxygen. So sulfur is also used in industry because sulfuric acid, H2SO4, is kind of the main industrial acid that's used for many industrial processes that require acids. And that obviously uses sulfur because sulfuric acid has sulfur in it. So sulfur itself is usually found as a kind of a yellowish powder, but it has many allotropes, or different forms of the same of the pure element. So in an experiment I'm going to show you, I actually convert the powder form into a polymerized form. Sulfur has a very beautiful blue emission spectrum when it burns, so I'll also show you that. And I'm also going to mix it with an oxidizer, which helps it burn much more brightly, but sadly has sodium in it, and so the sodium emission spectrum masks the sulfur emission spectrum. Alright, I'll show you some of the experiments now. Alright, so there is some yellow sulfur powder, which is rings of S8, oriented in the way that's most stable at room temperature. So now I'm heating it up, and it's melting, and the liquid starts out kind of a light red, and then it slowly gets darker and darker and more viscous. So now some of the sulfur is burning, and you can see that because a lot of the test tube is full of smoke. But that's okay, I'm heating it, with the cap on, with just a hole in the cap. So not very much oxygen can come into the test tube. So I'm going to keep heating it for a while. You see it's a really dark liquid now. Just make sure that it's all polymerized. And then I'm going to pour it out into a jar full of water. And hopefully we can actually see that it's polymerized. And you can smell a very faint smell of like rotten eggs right now. Gonna pour it out. Alright. Let's see what we got. You see how it's really stringy and stretchy? Yeah, it feels like, I don't know what, like a rubber band almost. And you can kind of pull it and play around with it. You see that sulfur burns with a nice blue emission spectrum. Alright. Whoo, that's some sulfur dioxide.